Not one, but two commitments on this 4th of July weekend. Tyson Harley, four-star defensive end, is going to join the class of 2026. And there's a reason this prospect became a priority for the Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a double feature today. You are locked on to Penn State football recruiting. And as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Tyson Harley becomes the latest prospect to join the Nittany Lions class of 2026. So we're going to talk about Harley, scouting report breakdown, player projection, how he's going to develop, and then talk about the defensive line recruiting, as Deion Barnes now has 4 defensive line commits in total, 2 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends that are all very much talented, and break down what Deion Barnes has done well in this cycle. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Tyson Harley, 4-star defensive end commit, listed different measurements. On 3 has him at 6'3", 220 pounds. 24/7 has him at 6'4", 215. He becomes the second defensive end commit in this class. And what stands out to me about Harley in particular is that for someone that is, give or take, 215, 220 pounds, he is a powerful pass rusher. This guy's a true defensive end. There's no, oh, well, maybe he moves back to linebacker or anything like that. No, this guy will be a defensive end. I imagine a weak side defensive end, but the way that he plays, you would think that he is a strong side defensive end, just how he uses the bull rush quite a bit. He's able to just push, bully offensive tackles back into the pocket. Very good with his hands. I will say that he is good at maneuvering past offensive tackles and is able to keep their hands off of him. So that technique, being able to, battle with the upper body, battle with your hands and win that way, those are elite traits that Harley has. So it's the pure strength, high motor. He plays past the whistle. Nothing egregious, of course, but this guy does have a high motor. The second the ball snapped, all the way till the end of the whistle. And that's what Tyson Harley is going to be bringing to Penn State. Now, I do want to, say, hey, what could he improve on? What could he be better at? I wouldn't describe Harley as a speed rusher per se. Now, he's fast, but I will say that his straight line speed, he's probably not going to be the fastest pass rusher on Penn State's team at any point in time. But what he does to make up for that is edge setting, physicality, high effort, high motor. He does have, he accelerates very well, I think. I think he does have a quick first step, but it is that full straight line speed. It's just, I think that faster, speedier players might be able to get away from him at times, maybe a faster quarterback, if you will, but there's nothing to say that Harley couldn't cut down on his 40 time there. Again, it's a minor criticism, not trying to come down on him as a prospect, but saying that, hey, let's look at his skill set and be honest that for someone who is relatively 220 pounds, he has insane strength, but could be a little faster as a defensive end. If you go up and you match up against stronger offensive tackles, I'm eager to see how that battle goes. Clearly, even at Gonzaga High School in D.C. is one of the football powerhouses within that D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. Olufashinu is from there. And oftentimes, at least recently, I did get them mixed up. I was saying that Emmanuel Iheanacho was playing over at Gonzaga. He's actually teammates with Carter Meadows. So imagine that, going up against that front four with a defensive end that is committed to Michigan. And then on the other side, it's Tyson Harley. And when I was watching the film, particularly, of course, Harley's highlights, I didn't get this Batman and Robin type of sense, meaning that oh, it's Carter Meadows, Carter Meadows, Carter Meadows, and then Tyson Harley will emerge for a play or two after that. That it's the Carter Meadows show and Tyson Harley does maybe some of the cleanup work. At least in his film, he was getting to the quarterback before Meadows. I think that's more. I think Harley's not too far off from Meadows. Do I believe that maybe Meadows has higher upside, better potential? Possibly because of frame, because of that speed. He has a little more of a balance, I think, but they both have balanced skill sets. Just because Carter Meadows maybe runs a faster 40 time doesn't mean that he's significantly better than Tyson Harley. So when I just seeing them side by side and watching them, two of them crashing both of the tackles after the quarterback, it is an absolute nightmare at the high school level right now. That is quite the 1-2 punch that Gonzaga has, but it's not as clear as you think, oh, Carter Meadows is the one and Tyson Harley is the two. No, they actually do. They split the workload pretty evenly when you watch their film together. Now, as far as what Harley's going to, his development path for Penn State, he is definitely a redshirt candidate in 2026. If you're going to come in at 220, maybe add some more weight, 225, 230. I can only imagine what the high school nutrition development, but we've seen that when Penn State gives out a plan, we'll see prospects, for example, take a Cortez Harris or an Yvonne Kemaju, who are kind of coming in already with that build, even though they are, at least for the time being, were redshirt candidates. I imagine Harley, because of where Penn State will be with defensive end, they don't need him to be a contributor right away, but I'll let him decide that. There's certainly an opportunity for him if he wants to enroll early and develop. But I think adding that defensive end, it's tough. It's kind of like tight end on the offensive side. You need to get to about 240, 250 pounds so that you're not just pushed around by that junior, senior, veteran offensive tackle that's been doing that for 3-4 years at the collegiate level. So that's where Harley's going to be a redshirt candidate. Year two, I think is going to be, he'll be a player that can definitely make the rotation. But Deion Barnes has done an exceptional job loading up on defensive ends. Max Granville will be back from injury. Guys like Malachi Williams, Jalen Harvey will be going all into their third season. And then you have the class in front of them where they loaded up at defensive end as well. I mentioned a Cortez Harris, but don't forget about somebody like a Chaz Coleman. So defensive end isn't really an issue for Penn State right now. Now, a lot of unproven talent. And when the dust settles in that battle, maybe somebody like Tyson Harley emerges in that rotation sooner rather than later. Definitely a breakout guy in year three if he's willing to stick with the process, because I think he's a great fit for Penn State's defensive line developmental system. So now that Harley is in the fold for Penn State, the rest of the defensive line class, it's taken shape. Deion Barnes doing some serious work on the recruiting trail. And we're going to talk about all of those prospects together and what they are bringing to this 2026 class coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. You got to download the Gametime app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. We're talking anything, sports, concerts, comedy, theater events, you name it. Gametime makes getting concert tickets this summer faster and easier than ever. Prices on the app actually go down as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. But those aren't the only tickets that are available. Sporting events, Major League Baseball, WNBA, Penn State football tickets. If you want to get tickets ahead of time, Penn State football tickets are up on Gametime. And one of the better features is the panoramic seat view. So if you've never been to Beaver Stadium before, you've never been to a concert venue, you will get that point of view ahead of time so you're not second guessing yourself. And that's why you use Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, tickets to sporting events, with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now it's fresh and it's top of mind. Talked about Marlon Bright, who committed before Tyson Harley on today here on July 5th. But Deion Barnes and Phil Troutwine are going through a similar build. They're crafting their respective position groups in a similar way where you're seeing blue chip prospects, guys that are overlooked, guys that are underrated, and continuing to develop them. So Phil Troutwine in the case of Olu Fashanu, or Deion Barnes in the case of Abdul Carter. And now you have Denai Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant and what have you. But it's very similar in how they are building these position rooms. You get those prospects that people are overlooking, high upside, diamonds in the rough, and then they turn into serious college football players where they're consistent starters. And you're not seeing a lot of turnover. You're not seeing an exodus similar. So Phil Troutwine and Deion Barnes are doing very similar things, but Phil Troutwine is going to be ahead because he's had more time to do this. Deion Barnes is what, maybe I'm mistaken, but he's going into year 3 as a defensive line coach. Phil Troutwine has been able to build out the offensive line room a little bit longer. So he has that depth. He has those relationships built and he has that proof. He has that evidence that if you join Penn State, this is what you could be as an offensive line prospect. So I think Deion Barnes is starting to build that credibility himself, where you have Abdul Carter, Denai Dennis Sutton, and Zane Durant are going to be that as well. Zariah Fisher, as a veteran, is somebody that's overlooked this season. But when we're talking about depth, talking long-term, defensive tackle is definitely a question mark going into this season, but not because there is no depth. It's because there are a lot of unproven, talented players that may have to step up in some capacity if Zane Durant, Alonzo Ford, and this is one of them, Xavier Gilliam, going into his second year. And Deion Barnes coaching to get Xavier Gilliam to a point in time where Penn State can confidently say that you are our third defensive tackle there. So defensive line is going to go from, hey, this is a questionable group to, oh, this is a real strength for Penn State, especially in the Big Ten. You're going to lose all 4 starters between Dennis Sutton, Fisher, and both defensive tackles, if we're assuming Alonzo Ford is that second starter, and he will be once he's healthy, with Zane Durant. You're going to lose all 4 of your defensive line. Oh, that's a lot of turnover, but that's natural attrition. But after that, you have so much defensive tackle depth. You have defensive end depth too. And that's a testament to Deion Barnes. Let's talk about this 2026 group and guys that maybe could play sooner rather than later. So mention Tyson Harley. I think one of the best players in this class of 2026 overall, Alex Haskell. Keep an eye on Alex Haskell to be that next household name in the interior of the defensive line. This guy projects as a defensive tackle. Could he play strong side defensive end? In theory, that was one of the recruiting points when Michigan and Penn State were going up against one another. But there was a reason the Wolverines were really pushing for him at one point in time. Alex Haskell is listed as a consensus 3-star. The industry has that one completely wrong. This guy has been dominant in camps before he was even a rising senior. He's on the record, and maybe I hope I didn't mishear this, that he was beating Cooper Cousins in one-on-ones. Now, I'm sure that Cooper Cousins got his as well, but Alex Haskell, think about that for a moment. If Cooper Cousins was a senior going at these same prospect camps, which means Alex Haskell was a rising sophomore at the time, and he's winning reps against Cooper Cousins, who we now see is going to be the starting guard for Penn State. That speaks volumes for Alex Haskell in his case. Jackson Ford recently committed, and that was a tough recruitment. But Penn State, I think Jackson Ford overall is the best overall pass rusher in this group. He's got the speed. He's got the strength. He has the measurables. Ford is the number, but Tyson Harley's not far off. I do think that Jackson Ford, I mean, there was a reason Ohio State was pushing for him, Michigan and Wisconsin. That was a Big Ten battle like anything. And then Isaac Chukwurah. Isaac Chukwurah was completely unknown in this recruiting cycle. The recruiting sites didn't even have a player profile for him until he committed to Penn State. And the concern was, okay, well, he's completely unranked. Or when the recruiting profiles did show up on the internet, that he's a low 3-star. He's outside, I think he was outside the top 1,000, and fans were concerned. that this is where this conversation comes from, that, oh, Penn State is settling. Penn State's not getting the prospects that they want to, and they have to pivot. He committed and again, players tell Penn State when they want to commit, and then he committed. The offer was out, and then he committed a week later. So that means that Penn State wanted him, and he wanted to be there. And then right after that commitment process, he goes to the regional in State College, the Elite 11's the quarterback camp, the skills competition for QBs. And then you have the All-22, which is skilled positions. So wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, defensive line. Chukwurah is the MVP. So an unknown prospect that literally everybody was overlooking. On3, 24/7, Rivals, you name it. Everybody but Penn State. And Chukwurah goes out just a couple weeks later or so, maybe a month, wins the MVP at that State College, Pennsylvania regional. So Deion Barnes, early in his career as a defensive line coach, has that ability to identify talent. They haven't been able to land every top name in this class of 2026, and I get that. But for Barnes to pivot the way that he has and still be able to recruit the talent that he did, I don't think this isn't a recruiting issue that Luke Wafel ends up going to USC, where he's offered over $1 million reportedly. That is on the record. That's not a Deion Barnes issue. And the same thing went for Carter Meadows. Michigan was willing to pay the NIL. And I don't think it's not that Penn State wasn't unwilling, but like I said in a previous episode, that their priorities are a little different. Roster retention costs a lot of money. Donors are bankrolling stadium renovations. Besides the point, I don't think that Deion Barnes was being out-recruited for the likes of Carter Meadows or a Luke Wafel, but he's still excellent. He's still excellent at finding those underrated players with high ceilings. Barnes has been a great choice. He continues to prove Franklin right every single time. When he was just a grad assistant, still relatively new to the coaching scene, and Penn State took a chance on him, I think Barnes has surpassed expectations at this point in time. And he's got 4 defensive line commits in this 2026 class after loading up in 2025. So defensive line, it is young, it is unproven, but the future is certainly bright. That is where we will wrap things up here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Double feature today with 2 commitments. Marlon Bright, offensive tackle. Go check out that episode, that recap. And then this one with Tyson Harley now in the fold. If you're new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. Let me know your thoughts down below so you don't be a part of the conversation, and don't miss out on anything when it comes to Penn State. Football, basketball, wrestling, recruiting, you name it. It is all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.